The polished oak floor groaned under Karen Mitchell's designer loafers as she slipped to the front door, a brass key glinting in her hand. Adjusting the HOA president badge pin proudly to her blazer, she raised her phone, ready to capture evidence of what she deemed unauthorized decor. The abstract painting above the fireplace was her first target, followed by the throw pillows that didn't meet her personal vision of neighborhood standards. But before she could continue, two uniformed officers stepped out from a hallway. Their badges caught the same afternoon light as her stolen key. Hands resting near their holstered weapons, they studied her with a mix of alertness and disbelief. Karen froze, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "My name is Marcus Chun. I'd moved into Oak Ridge Estates 3 months after finalizing my divorce, looking for a peaceful, fresh start. The neighborhood seemed idyllic, neatly trimmed lawns, quiet streets, until I met Karen Mitchell, the self-appointed queen of the HOA. Within 48 hours of moving in, I received my first violation. My curtains were visible from the street. According to Karen, HOA guidelines required interior decor to be aesthetically pleasing even when viewed through a window. She delivered this gem personally, clipboard in hand, and a smile that never reached her eyes. I thought she was joking, until she handed me an official warning letter. The citations came relentlessly. My mailbox wasn't the right shade of black. My garden hose was coiled counterclockwise instead of clockwise. My recycling bin sat at an 87 degrees angle instead of a perfect 90. Each notice came with increasing fines and HOA handbook citations that I suspected Karen invented on the spot. Closing my blinds only earned me another violation, this time for creating a hostile appearance that allegedly lowered property values. Soon after, Karen began requesting interior inspections. She claimed neighbors had graciously allowed her to tour their homes to ensure compliance with unwritten standards of excellence. When I declined, she looked genuinely offended. The request became more aggressive. Late-night visits with claims of anonymous complaints about strange smells or noises. I continued to refuse, citing my right to privacy. That's when the harassment escalated. Subtle signs appeared. Flower pots shifted, footprints pressed into freshly mulched beds, even muddy tracks inside my foyer after I returned from a weekend trip. That was my breaking point. I filed a police report, presenting Detective Janet Rodriguez with months of citations and increasingly threatening letters from Karen. Detective Rodriguez suggested a sting operation. Without hard proof, it would be my word against Karen's. Hidden cameras were installed throughout my home. 2 officers would lie in wait during my usual absences. All we needed was for Karen to take the bait. What we didn't know was that she had a spare key, left years earlier by a contractor, in the HOA files. On Thursday evening, I followed my routine, leash my golden retriever, Bailey, and leave for a walk at precisely 6:30. Officers Maria Gonzalez and James Thompson slipped into the back an hour earlier, setting up in my office to monitor the cameras. At 6:47, Karen appeared, glancing around nervously. She produced a stolen key from her purse and let herself in with the ease of practice. She moved straight to the living room. Phone already out, she snapped photos of my bookshelf, muttering about inappropriate titles visible from the street. She documented my coffee table, claiming it violated unwritten furniture placement guidelines. So focused on her task, she didn't notice the officers until Gonzalez cleared her throat. Karen spun, pale as paper, dropping her phone to hardwood with a sickening crack. "I'm conducting an official HOA inspection," she stammered, flashing her badge as if it were federal authority. Officer Thompson asked if she had permission from the homeowner. Karen's response was dripping with entitlement. As HOA president, she claimed she had implicit authority to enter any property. She even suggested the officers should be thanking her for preserving tax-based property values. Her hands shook as she pulled a laminated copy of the bylaws from her purse, flipping through pages with frantic urgency. She began reading aloud in a shaky voice, quoting vague commitments about maintaining standards. Officer Gonzalez cut her off, explaining firmly that HOA rules were civil matters. They did not override criminal law. Breaking into someone's home was a crime, period. Karen's composure crumbled. When she tried to leave, the situation only grew worse. Karen straightened her shoulders and declared she was finished with this nonsense. She turned toward the door, but Officer Thompson calmly stepped into her path. Flustered, Karen's face flushed scarlet. "Am I being detained?" she demanded. When both officers confirmed that she was, the facade cracked. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, dialing her husband on speaker. She spoke loudly about police harassment and false imprisonment. At first, his voice was reassuring, until the officers explained the real situation. The silence that followed spoke volumes. Officer Gonzalez then stated firmly that Karen was being detained for unlawful entry and criminal trespassing. As Gonzalez reached for her cuffs, Karen's desperation bled through her words. She insisted it was a misunderstanding, that she had a key, that the HOA bylaws gave her inspection rights. Her voice rose into a shrill pitch as she demanded supervisors, threatened lawsuits, and invoked her lawyer brother-in-law. None of it stopped the unmistakable click of steel around her wrists. The walk to the patrol car was unforgettable. Karen alternated between legal threats and appeals to her HOA authority, her voice carrying across the street. Neighbors gathered to watch. Margaret Ellis from 2 doors down clapped her hands as Karen passed, while Robert Choane captured the entire scene on his phone. Karen tried to hide her face, but her platinum bob and monogram blazer gave her away. She muttered about violations of privacy, blind to the irony. At the station, her behavior didn't change. She balked at being fingerprinted, insisting the ink would ruin her manicure. She demanded a private cell, claiming her position in the community made her different from ordinary criminals. The booking officer, unimpressed, processed her like anyone else. When finally allowed a phone call, Karen skipped her lawyer brother-in-law and instead tried to reach the mayor's office to complain about her treatment. The duty sergeant later told me she'd never seen anyone so oblivious to the seriousness of their situation. Word of the arrest spread through Oak Ridge Estates faster than any HOA bulletin. By the next morning, every resident knew. At the emergency board meeting that weekend, the room overflowed. Former victims of Karen's tyranny shared stories, and the vote to remove her was unanimous. Even her closest allies abandoned her. The board also passed a new rule: all spare keys had to be destroyed or returned to homeowners. The criminal case uncovered even more. Prosecutors revealed Karen had entered multiple homes, compiling secret dossiers on residents she considered problems. The files contained photos of interiors, bedrooms, private spaces, and notes speculating on finances, routines, and personal lives. My own file was marked with a red flag, filled with details about my divorce, and even guesses about my income. Detective Rodriguez testified that this behavior went far beyond HOA duties, edging into criminal stalking. Karen herself sealed her downfall. Ignoring her lawyer's advice, she insisted on testifying. For nearly an hour, she lectured about community standards and rising property values. When asked directly if she believed she had the right to enter any home, she answered yes without hesitation, even comparing her HOA badge to a police warrant. The judge's expression grew darker with every word. In the end, Karen Mitchell was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 300 hours of community service, and $10,000 in fines. She stood there in stunned disbelief, unable to comprehend that her title and authority within Oak Ridge Estates had no power in a court of law. The woman who once ruled the neighborhood with an iron fist was reduced to a cautionary tale, a reminder of how far entitlement can fall when confronted by real justice.